Hello everyone and good morning. Welcome to another Tensoft training webinar. We provide free web training for customers, but today's particular webcast is open to non-customers as well. Today's webcast is titled Reconciliation Made Easier and will be presented by Diane Faria. We have a few viewing tips for you guys. First, mute your lines to ensure the best possible recording. The number one cause of issues for webcast is bandwidth constraints. So it would be best to close windows during a webcast. And if you can't hear, click the audio or audio conference button on your WebEx screen and follow the directions there. Submit questions at any time on the chat panel, and if you'd like access to the recording of this webcast, please contact me at ann@tensoft.com. We have other training resources for our customers, and they include these quarterly training webcasts. We also have a user conference called Momentum for FSM users, and it's quite cost-effective training. We also have personalized training by request, and you can contact me for quotes on those. Some other announcements is the end of life for some of our products. Tensoft FSM 2009 will be expired on March 31st of next year. Sorry about that typo. And Tensoft RCM 5 will be expired December 31st of this year. Microsoft Dynamics support GP 2010 has expired already. If you would like a quote for for an upgrade or just get more information on this, please feel free to contact me. Email announcements about these have been sent. And without further ado, I will be giving Diane control of this meeting.
Perfect. Thank you, Ann. I hope everyone can see my screen. Ann, can you?
Can.
Perfect. Okay, I'll go ahead and get started then. So we as accountants know the importance of reconciling our subledger balances to our general ledger control accounts. We're used to doing this with Excel downloads, of course. With GP 2010, Microsoft added a routine called Reconcile to GL to assist in troubleshooting reconciling issues. In GP 2010, Reconcile was available for accounts payable and accounts receivable. With GP 2013, they also added bank reconciliation and inventory. This Reconcile routine is a troubleshooting tool and does not make any adjusting entries, but it does a reasonable job of presenting the data differences between the subledger and the general ledger in an Excel report format. So in this session, we'll take a look at a combination of GP setups, transaction date entry, and also how to use this Reconcile to GL feature for accounts payable to assist in this reconciling effort. So first, let's take a look at some setups in GP that impact AP postings. So first, I'm going to go to Financial, Cards, and Account. I'm going to bring up my accounts payable control account. And notice this field called Allow Account Entry. With this option marked, users will be able to manually enter this account in transaction or distribution entry windows. But for control accounts like this, it's helpful if you unmark this option. With Allow Account Entry unmarked, users will not be able to manually enter this account in a transaction or distribution entry window. This is best for control accounts. So that's first point. Next, I'm going to save my options. I'm going to go to Purchasing, and in my Setup Payables window, notice this option. It's called Track Discounts Available in GL. If this option is checked, GP will use a separate GL account number to post the discount available amount. This is important to know when performing your reconciliation. You'll have multiple GL accounts to use when comparing your subledger balance to your general ledger balance. Next, I'm going to go to Administration and Setup, Posting. Here, notice if I select my purchasing series and my payables transaction entry, I have options post to general ledger and post through general ledger. Post to general ledger must be marked for reconciling. Usually this is only unmarked if we're doing beginning balance entry. Post through general ledger is optional, but it does save the amount of posting that needs to be done if it is marked. Since dates are a key component of the reconciliation process, let's also look at the setup of posting dates here. See the posting date from section. If batch is marked, the posting date used for the general ledger posting will be the date entered in the batch entry window of the originating module. If transaction is marked, the posting date used for the general ledger will be the document date you enter for the voucher. The posting date will default to the document date, but you can override that by choosing the date expansion button in the transaction entry window, and we'll go through an example of that override next. So now that we have reviewed the setup options that are valuable for understanding GL posting dates, let's look at how posting dates can be entered in accounts payable. So I'm navigating to Purchasing, Transactions, and Transaction Entry. I'm going to start entering a transaction, and I'm going to assume that I'm using a batch here. So I'm going to create my training batch. When I add my batch, note that I have a posting date field here, but it's grayed. And the reason it's grayed is that we just saw in our administration setup posting, we've set accounts payable transaction entry to get the posting date from the transaction, not from the batch. If we had set it to come from the batch, we could update the date here. So I'm going to go ahead and close out of that batch window. And now I'm going to assume that I'm using transaction, not batch, and I'm going to create a transaction for an older period. So let's say I got an invoice from June, but you know what, June's already closed. I want to make sure I use the June date on the transaction so that it will age properly, but I need it to hit my open period. So I can use my blue document date expansion, and I have the option of overriding my posting date. So even though I have a June transaction date on my invoice that I got very late, I can still have this post to the general ledger in October. Okay? That's it for entering posting dates within the transaction entry window in Payables. So now we're ready to do some reconciliation. Reconciliation, of course, should start with running an aging report in Purchasing. So I'm going to navigate to Purchasing, Reports, Trial Balance. I'm going to choose my historical age trial balance, and notice that I've already created one for October 2015. So what's key here is your print age as of date. So I want to have a report as of 10/31, so I can use that to tie out to my general ledger control accounts. And what's also key is how I select transactions for the report. GL posting date is going to be the key entry here if what I want to do is tie the general ledger to the subledger. So GL posting date is a critical component here, and these are the recommended exclude options. You want to include your credit balances. In other words, you won't exclude. We have some double negatives going here. And the others are multi-currency info is optional, but the others are recommended to be marked this way for reconciling. So with this historical age trial balance run with your as of date and using the GL posting date to select transactions. You're going to run this report. If the total on this report agrees to the general ledger control account or accounts, then your reconciliation is done. There's no more work to do. If they don't agree, this is where we can use the reconcile to GL routine to troubleshoot transactions that could be causing an issue. So let's go through that process. Now I'm going to navigate to Financial, Routines, and Reconcile to GL. Now remember that this routine is a troubleshooting tool only. It doesn't make any adjustments. It simply presents data that is designed to highlight the differences. So a reconciliation number is generated. It's just sequential. The beginning and ending dates of the period that you're working to reconcile can be entered here. You can choose your dates from your drop-downs. I'm selecting the Payables Management module to reconcile here, but you can see that Receivables Management is available, as is Bank Reconciliation. Inventory is not showing here because I don't have it installed in my test environment, but it would be showing here if it had been. In the Accounts section, this is where you're going to choose your GL control accounts. So if you use multiple GL control accounts for accounts payables, you would select them all here. In my output file, I can use my browse to choose a path and folder and file name. I am choosing the default that GP establishes, so it's using I'm Demo C, that's who I am today. Believe it or not, I'm not Diane. And it's assigning a name called PM to GL 46 being the numeric reconciliation number and 10/2015 being the period that I'm reconciling. Once all of my input is entered, I can simply press the process button. And now the data is being gathered and compiled in an Excel format. I'm just going to size this to make sure you can see the full screen. Okay, so let's now review this report. So note that it's broken into two sections, right to left. So the payables transaction detail is on the left. The general ledger transaction details are on the right. It's also broken down into three categories. We have unmatched transactions, potentially matched transactions, and matched transactions. We'll go through the specifics of those. Note also on the bottom left that the system does do some totaling. So we can see that the total payables management beginning balance and general ledger beginning balance are in agreement. There is no difference. But as of the end of the month, I do have a discrepancy. So I have a $985 difference between payables management and general ledger balance at the end of the month. So let's review matched transactions. So what the system does is it matches the transaction source documents, PMCHK2 matches PMCHK2, for example, and the dollar amounts agree. So the matched transactions, there's really nothing for you to do here. Everything's looking good there. Let's review partially matched. So note that the document numbers agree. PMTRX14 on both sides, voucher number 6, originating number 6, those are good. But the dollar amounts don't agree. So I have $1,500 on the payable side, and I have $1,485 on the general ledger side. So I'm going to go back to GP, and I'm going to look at this vendor, ATT, and see if I can figure out what's going on with this transaction. So I'm going to navigate to Purchasing and Transaction by Vendor. I'm going to choose my ATT vendor, and I do see this $1,500 transaction. So if I click on that, I'll drill back to the document number. So it is a $1,500 voucher. I do note that the payment terms are discounted, so I have a 1% 10 net 30. So if I go look at my distributions, I am going to find that because of the way my payable setup was done to segregate the discounts available, I actually have $15 that didn't go to the control account that I used in my reconciliation. So my control account was $2,100. That got the $1,485, which is net of the discount. And my account 2115, which is my AP discounts available, got the $15. So if when I was doing my reconcile to GL routine, I had also included the account 2115 in my control accounts, this would have then been matched rather than partially matched. So if I were to change my routine, add that 2115 account number, and rerun my reconcile, this would appear as matched. So that explains that transaction. Let's go back, take another look. We now have some unmatched items. So my unmatched items, I actually have one on each side. Let's start with the one on the payables side. So I have a transaction for $15,000 that looks like it's a payables management transaction 18 that's not showing up in the GL. The most common reason for this to occur if there are unposted accounts payable batches. So let's take a look at that. So back to GP, I'm going into financials now, and I'm going to navigate to batches. I do see that I have one payables management transaction batch that is unposted yet in the GL. The dollar amount is $30,000, which is the combination of both the debit and the credit amount of $15,000. So this does explain the unmatched. All that needs to happen here is to post this batch, and this will become a non-reconciling item. So that resolves that. So we'll go back to Excel again. And again, we're on unmatched. So for the unmatched transaction, which is on the general ledger side, but not on the accounts payable side, notice the transaction source. So the transaction source is GLTRX. In other words, it's not a payables management source. So we know that coding journal entries direct to the control accounts will cause an out of balance. So this entry needs to be reversed and either entered through the subledger, payables, or posted to another account, maybe an AP accrual account, if really we don't have the information yet to post it into payables management. So with these examples, we've gone through how the reconcile to GL works and showed you how you can use this as an aid to gather the data you need to research differences between your subledger and the general ledger and get them back in agreement through any adjusting entries that you may need to make. So with that quick run through, what we've really done is we talked about setups that should be established to reduce subledger and general ledger issues and gain an understanding of how the document date versus posting date will impact reconciling. And the best way to reconcile being running the accounts payable historical age trial balance report as of the period date and then using the GL posting date in the reporting options and comparing the total on that report to the general ledger control account balances. So the reconcile to GL routine that I've shown today, again, is a troubleshooting tool. It was created to assist with finding differences. If the historical age trial balance and the general ledger control accounts balance, there's no need to use this routine at all. If they don't balance, this routine can aid in resolving any reconciling items. And quick as that was, we've gone through all of the issues that I needed to cover today. And with that, Anne is going to open the session for questions.
Hello everyone. If you have any questions, please post them in the chat or questions panel. Well, it doesn't look like we have any. All right then, in that case, I guess we can end this session, and I will post a recording of this webinar. And if you are unable to view it, please email me at Anne, that's ANNE, at tensoft.com, and I will send you a link to the recordings of this webinar. All right, everyone. Thank you for participating.